Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Logan Kilpatrick. I'm on the Google DeepMind team. Welcome back to Release Notes. Today we're joined by Tulsee Doshi, who's the product lead for actually more than just Gemini models. All models now inside of
our Gen
AI models inside of DeepMind, and Josh Woodward, who leads product for AI Studio, Gemini app, and Google Labs, so the whole suite of DeepMind's and actually more than DeepMind's product services. Tulsee, Josh, we're sitting here because of Gemini 3.0, and we're sort of entering the Gemini 3 era. Do you want to give us the sort of high level of the exciting headlines for this model launch?
Yeah, we're super excited about this model launch. So we're releasing Gemini 3 Preview. We're releasing it in a wide range of surfaces, and Josh can talk more about what that looks like. But I think the reason we're doing that is because we're seeing this model really be this step change in terms of what you can do with it and what you can build. And so a couple of things that we're really excited about. I mean, one, the model is just state of the art when you think about reasoning and its depth and its nuance, its ability to kind of take simple prompts and actually turn that into extremely rich outputs. So that's, I think, one starting point. Its multimodal understanding is also incredible. So I think one of the things I'm really excited about is its video understanding, its image understanding, its ability to actually go deeper between the context of your text and the images, and then combine that with its abilities in coding, for example, to actually create just really cool outcomes, I think is awesome, right? That ties then to it's an amazing vibe coding model. It's also our best model yet for agentic use cases and tools and agentic coding. So there's a whole step change we're bringing in that regard. And then I think lastly, one of the things we always look at with Gemini is we're trying to build well-rounded models. So we want to build models that are actually really smart, which this model is, but also models that we think are going to be really good for users in our product.
For both of you, what was that moment, and Josh, maybe you start with this one, that you tried one of the Gemini 3 checkpoints and sort of, the use case or the demo that clicked? Was there any of them that you sort of saw this and you're like, this is clearly a step change? And I'm happy to give mine as well.
Yeah, we should go around. I mean, I had a few of these.
Yeah.
I think this model's really good at vibe coding. It's very good at web dev. And you can just describe something that's in your head, hit a button and it's there. And that is kind of a crazy sort of compression of time and skill and expertise. So that was one. I'm really excited about the multimodal capabilities too. We're doing some stuff. We're kind of both on the Gemini side and the Google Labs side. We're really caught up in this idea of how you can transform content. And this model's very good at that, better than I've ever seen. So those would be two off the top of my head.
What are some examples of the transforming content piece? Is this, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, say you're a student, you've got a whole bunch of video lectures, handwritten notes, any of that, you just load it in, hit a button, it goes. Anything around, I'm very excited about also kind of visual formats. We're starting to play around a lot with that. There's a experimental feature we're putting in the Gemini app where you can sort of describe something. It'll make an interactive website for you on the fly.
It's crazy. And so, that's not Canvas though? It's
kind of built its own little thing.
Got it.
And I think to me, that's a whole new frontier with these models. We're calling it generative interfaces on the team. But this idea that just pixels are streamed in as they're ready based on your prompt. And I think that's a whole leap. We've never been able to do that before. So that's now possible. Still a little slow right now. That's why we have it as a labs feature. But I hope people will play around with it a lot because we're doing experiments where it's give the history of Van Gogh's life by period with example artwork, and it'll just build a whole timeline and just let you go through it. And it's all just generated. Pretty amazing.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Tulsee?
3 examples from my side. One is I do think the vibe coding piece really does hit. And I think it does because the visuals are so rich and the interactivity is so rich. And so I was using it literally to create a fun game to play with my niece with a single prompt, what you can get, her ability to actually engage with it. I think that kind of fidelity of the experience we haven't been able to see before, and that I think really hits home.
We're using AI Studio.
I'm using AI Studio.
Fear
not. The second one, though, that I think is really interesting is actually one of the things we don't talk as much about with this model is its multilinguality is also really good. So its ability to write in like Hindi or actually in Gujarati, which is like not as common a language, but is like from the western part of India, which is what my family speaks, that is also really strong. And I think that was another wow moment for me, which is like, oh, this model is really good.
Yeah.
And it's actually able to do something that I personally struggle with, you know, in terms of daily life, that I would actually really love to see kind of play out. And then the third is my husband is a very avid pickleball player, but the like video understanding of the model and its ability to kind of break down a video and like break down a set of moves and actually like give you critical feedback. I think it's like all three of these examples are basically combinations of the model being able to understand something that maybe you by yourself either struggle to do, or it's harder to do, or just requires a lot more focus and attention, and the model is able to pull out some of those nuances and actually like help you with them in a much like richer kind of way.
Yeah.
And I think it's just been awesome. Also, I will say like the vibes of the model, even in terms of like the style in which it responds, it feels different than other models. It feels smart.
Yeah.
And I think that also stands out when you engage with it.
I think the one other thing I would add to, you said it, is like, to me, we're getting at a point in Gemini 3 where it's like the combination of a lot of these things is really starting to show and differentiate. So like when you go back, Gemini 1, long context, Gemini 2, more modalities, some of the coding started to come in, 2.5, even more coding. Now we're kind of in like agent tool use. It's all starting to kind of almost like ladder and sort of build on itself. And I think that's what we're starting to feel, at least I'm feeling on the team, is like there aren't these little isolated model features anymore. It's actually like the combination that starts to get really interesting. And I think we saw this even with Nano Banana a few months ago, where you kind of take something as like put it together. So to me, this is like Gemini 3 gives us a huge foundation of sort of things we can combine in new ways. And that's where you get like multimodal and vibe coding. Suddenly you've got some really interesting interactive thing that just before wasn't really possible or that easy to do.
Or there's this cool demo someone on the team built, and I think we're actually using it in the materials, where they took a picture of a handwritten recipe in Korean and then turned it into like a full vibe coded like family recipe app in English with the measurements where you could adapt them for like different
switch.
You could switch.
Yeah.
And like, again, that's a great example of like the combination of like, it has strong multilingual capabilities. It has strong multimodal understanding. So you can literally take a picture of a handwritten recipe in Korean. You can then get a fully fledged like interactive app on the other side that you can actually use in your day-to-day life. Like that combination of things is really cool.
Yeah. I feel like this gives so much credence to the bring anything to life narrative for Gemini. I'm like, maybe that's the Gemini long-term slot. Like, do we have a Gemini model slogan? Like, I know there's a Gemini app, like the 3 Ps and all the research to reality stuff.
Talking to the person.
But do we have one? Because maybe we should adopt
have
right now. Bring anything to life is the new Gemini.
We are. I mean, for Gemini 3, I think that is, for all practical purposes, the slogan.
And I think what's cool is you talk about that example with the recipes and handwritten in Korean and everything. In some ways, it's mind-blowing, but in other ways, it's like, yeah, this is how it should work.
Yeah.
You think about kind of the boundaries and sort of human-computer interaction. I think Gemini 3 like blurs those even more in a way we've never done before, which is cool.
Yeah.
What was yours?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Mine was, Josh, we were in Arizona and I spent like all day making demos with 2.5 Pro. And I was like, gosh, 2.5 Pro is such a good model. And then I was like, wait, I should probably try these with the new checkpoints. And then it was just like, I was like, okay, this thing's incredible. Like, especially like, it was like very front and center in my mind. Like this was the limitation of 2.5. There was these cases where I wish it was, and then I could just like see automatically. And then I had a interaction where I was DMing with someone and they were like, hey, try to make this random game. And there was like a RPG sort of like fishing game and it just like one-shotted it. And then I went and, you know, Demis worked on some of the original Sim roller coaster type, no, not roller coaster, but like Sim City 1984 or something like that. Sort of tried to remake a game like that and it just worked using one of the earlier checkpoints. And then again with some of the most recent checkpoint. And it's it blows my mind. I think the video game example feels so pertinent because there's so many people who like learned, if it feels top of mind for me, because there's so many people who tried to learn computer science with the end goal of like building games, because it's just fun, interactive thing. And like building games actually sucks and it's not fun in a lot of cases. And I feel like Gemini 3 has this power to like help people bring the thing that they want to life.
You know what's actually awesome is we use Gemini 3. So YouTube has this notion of playables,
Yeah.
right? Where you can go to YouTube and play a game. And we actually used Gemini 3. Well, by we, I mean Dishin, who's awesome and does incredible things. He actually used Gemini 3 to build a bunch of YouTube playables that we actually are going live on Tuesday with the model. And they're awesome and they're like so fun to play. And I think like just the idea that you can create this like vast set of creators who can actually build these types of interactive experiences is really awesome. But yeah, I think it was after your Arizona trip where you pinged me and were like, we got to ship this.
We got to ship this.
It's awesome.
But it felt like it. I think if you spend time with the models all the time, like it's just so clear that 3.0 is, or 3 is just a step change. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
Josh, that's a great, we talked about vibe coding stuff, but like there's a bunch of new, it's not just, you know, Gemini 3 sticking it into the existing Gemini app. Like there's a bunch of new product stuff. So maybe we actually talk about that as this through line.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things coming I'm excited about. One, across Gemini and search AI mode, there's going to be a whole wave of kind of generative interfaces, generative UI.
And just clarify, how is this different for folks who have like seen vibe coding stuff? Is that similar? So like the model is generating code and then there's like function calling behind the scenes, or can you give like a little bit more detail of like the user who hasn't seen this before? How does it work? What should they expect?
Yeah, so the shift we're starting to see, and this is really the frontier, the beginning of it, is in the past, some engineer here in the building would have coded the UI. It would have been one way for all users until it got changed. And what we're seeing now with Gemini 3 is it can actually make a lot of those design and implementation choices on its own. It's a big shift. So you may do a query like, hey, I'm planning an upcoming trip, give me a 3-day itinerary. You know, up until Gemini 3, we would have responded with a wall of text with some pictures. Now the model is going to respond obviously more concise like we talked about, but it's also going to lay out the page. And so at a practical level, sometimes we do that where it's actually saying, here's a tool call. Give me this tool that's going to lay out a, I don't know, carousel I can scroll through. Other times what it's going to do is actually almost act like a design agent and be like, I'm going to go through a design process and think about what's the best way to present a 3-day trip to Rome. And so it may lay out a table. It may give you kind of something that almost looks like a magazine style layout.
Yeah.
And all of this, we're kind of experimenting right now, like how much can we sort of trust the model to lay this stuff out? So it's super cool because you're giving the model widgets, a style sheet, different tools it can use, and you're kind of saying, go wild, model. And so I think for a lot of people, what they're going to feel is, oh, this is a much more visual, kind of immersive, interactive, but also kind of customized to me sort of view. And I think that's what's exciting, is like it's just the beginning of that. And so I think if we look ahead throughout the Gemini 3 series, as well as 3.5 and beyond, this idea of models being able to kind of compose more and more things feels like an interesting theme to kind of explore.
It feels like one of the big constraints of like actually bringing the model and letting the world experience how it can bring anything to life is like we need crazy amounts of compute because the demand is so, it's not even like we don't have lots of compute, it's just the demand curve is like this. You know, can't build physical compute that fast in 6 months. So I'm curious, like for the Gemini app and maybe more broadly across other products in your scope, like how are you thinking about the balance from also from a user perspective of like where we're allocating compute because we think there's value for different use cases?
Yeah, it's super hard. I would say like, we could share some of our stories like the Friday before launch. I mean, I don't know what's harder, solving AGI or solving the puzzle of compute. But I think like what makes it hard, and you hit on this, Logan, is like, there's just demand everywhere. And so that's one thing. Well, I think we're making products now that people want, and they are coming back to them and using them. I mean, even just in the Gemini app, our daily requests has tripled in the last quarter.
That's great.
And I know we've seen similar stuff on AI Studio, and developers are just like, so when you're straining that many tokens, you really have to try to think through it. I mean, one of the things we spent a lot of time up here on Friday was like trying to think about, okay, where are the places where a lot of people can experience kind of the great stuff in Gemini 3? So there's going to be some consumer apps, there's going to be some developer stuff, there's going to be some customers. And so we try to think about that. Then we try to get very creative. Like there's a great kind of tool that came out of Google Labs called Flow, helps you make sort of videos. And that was one we were like, oh, there's just not enough. And we're like, no, but there has to be, because this product's like, people love this product. And so we were able to find some crazy deal over the weekend where they're going to convert some of their chips to a different kind of TPU to get another TPU freed up. So, you know, you go to all these ways to try to like make it work. And we'll see. It's launch day, so we'll see how well our estimates played out. But we have a crazy Google sheet where there's
all these estimates, we're like moving things around.
Yeah.
When are we working on Gemini 3, Gemini 3 Flash and all the other models? Like, do you have a sense of like when we get smaller models? And
Yeah. This is my turn to say, watch this space. but
which space?
Yeah, including the app. But actually, I think so. We definitely want to build out the Gemini 3 family. So I think Pro is just the beginning of this, and like we're already, I think, very excited about the direction we're going with Flash and where we're going to be with the rest of the Gemini 3 models. I think the reason for sort of shipping them in sequence instead of like bundling them all together and trying to ship them all as one package is, one, when you ship one of these models, you get to learn a lot about how people are using them. And so you get to learn a lot about like, okay, where is 3 Pro really resonating? Where did we think it was going to resonate versus where are people resonating with it? Where are we seeing people say, hey, actually, like, this is too expensive for my use case, or it's too slow for my use case, or I might actually need something different, which then influences what you do for Flash, right? Because Flash is meant to be the workhorse model, and we want to make sure we kind of account for those pieces when we're building that. And so I think actually shipping them in sequence kind of allows us to like learn from one and build to the other. I think it's also part of the relentless shipping exercise, right? If you want to ship quickly, we want to actually like put these models out there and see what people do with them and get feedback. So yeah, but there will be some exciting stuff coming.
Thank you both. This was an awesome conversation. Thank you both for the hard work of pushing to get the model into all the products. I feel like folks are going to enjoy the moment. So hopefully we'll be sitting here for I/O maybe sooner next year and launching other cool models. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy it.
We don't play that. We don't play that. We don't play that. G-Unit. We don't play around.